May meet Annie here. This is a video response. It's a video response to a question that I left on Witch Allen's video that he then was kind enough to do a video about. Now, his video was one in which he mentioned the power of his private solo practice, and he referred back to some of his experiences with group because he has had a lot of experiences with group. And it was a really interesting video, as are all of his videos. And I asked him a question in the comments, which was, he has the experience of both. And the question I had was, triggered from my own experiences, was when he had the opportunity now to attend, guest at, or guest lead, whatever, a group celebration. Now that his private solo practice has become so sophisticated and so powerful to him, when he then had the chance to be with a group, how did it feel different than it had felt before when he practiced generally with groups? And he then did a video response to me, which was really an interesting description of how that felt for him and where his private practice had come and what it had come to mean for him. And Alan, so much of what you said just resonated so powerfully with me that I wanted to do a video response to that. I mentioned to you I would, but it took a while before I had the time. The first 10 years that I was practicing was with a coven, the first coven that I initiated into. And this is old school traditional Wicca, where we really didn't. I know it seems so strange to those who are watching this video and solitary practitioners, and very powerfully solitary, that it didn't enter our minds that we would practice outside of what the coven did, because it was group energy and the coming together, which is how we affected our magics. And we didn't practice outside of that. Oh, we honored our gods outside of that, and we honored the seasons, and we did our work with herbs and stones and our divinations, and yeah, there was all kinds of things going on outside the circle that one would consider witchy in nature. But the working of our magics, the energy aspect of that, was something that we did as a group. It's all we knew how to do as a group. And after that coven disbanded, better part of my 20s with that coven, I couldn't find another coven of a like mind at that point. I just wasn't finding brothers and sisters that thought as I did. And we all know that problem, don't we? Meeting others that we are of like mind with to feel that comfortable doing work together didn't happen for me when that coven was disbanding. And therefore I was a witch alone, and I really wasn't sure what a witch alone was, because the only thing I knew was group magic. I was able to continue seasonal celebrations, and my relationship with my deities remained very, very strong, and in fact became probably more powerful because I then was only working with my personal deities. But it was a really interesting time. Now, what happened is the land spoke to me. I say constantly in my videos that more than anything else, I am an elemental witch, and the power of the elements is what drives me and moves me. It is how I do the work that I do and work my magics, is just being one with the natural elements and accomplishing things together. And that's what brought me to the place of understanding my personal solo power. I was lonely after that coven disbanded. And where I found my brothers and sisters was in the elements. My guardians of the elements seemed to have decided to give me a good lesson, or 100 good lessons in. They were there. They were there intimately and personally for me. And the elements were there for me, and all the building blocks of my magics were there for me. And I learned a lot about trusting myself and trusting my instincts and building a personal practice. Now, this was before things like, say, the Spiral Dance or Cunningham's books came out, where suddenly there was that term that there was a solitary practitioner. Now, it wasn't long after that those books were coming out, so then it became like, well, maybe this isn't such an alien thing. And it was actually books that were the things that, Spiral Dance perhaps more than anything. I can't say that Cunningham's books inspired me in any way, but they did provide the great freedom of it's okay to be a witch alone. I remember Ed Fitch's books and Herman Slater's books were the same thing. They were small books in comparison to the tomes that you all read nowadays. We all do. I shouldn't say you. I read them too. They were small books, but they gave you so much freedom because you only knew the rituals you had been taught. You had your Book of Shadows, but what good was a Book of Shadows meant for a group when you were a witch alone? And some of these things that especially Slater and Fitch were writing, and Starhawk too, you realized you could give your own poetry to it, your own words to it. And the thing is that those of you who have only ever practiced solo probably don't understand this aspect of it, because you certainly know the frustrations of working solo. But the glory of working solo was something that just washed over me in that late 70s, early 80s period of time. The sense that I could make it whatever I wanted it to be, and the sense that my gods were there, solidly there with me, side by side with me, especially my guardians were there with me. My elemental guardians were very, very much, they had my back and they trained me and they guided me. And the immense power of that. And there was something that Alan said, I'm looking at my notes because I wrote down one of the things that he said that really, it was where I discovered the power of practicing solo. He called it pinpoint powerful. Pinpoint powerful. Don't I love it? I love that phrase. Pinpoint powerful. Absolutely. The purity of focus, my entire experience in those first years of working alone was fire. It was all about devotion and will and the point of the blade in a mystical sense. Awesomely powerful for me. Awesomely powerful for me. I came out of a place of great fear and great loneliness. I truly was absolutely bereft with lack of community. Oh, I tried to reach out to public community in those times, but I wasn't finding what I had in my circle, because even in those days it was becoming more free-form. It was becoming highly influenced by feminist theology, and I was old school Wiccan. And then I would go to a gathering and it would be as full of science fiction characters as it would be witches, and it just wasn't working for me. Oh, it worked later. I started to understand the power of the social connections and the beautiful energy of coming together with large groups of pagans, whether you had a lot in common with them or not. But in those early days, I was too serious. I was looking for religious brothers and sisters, spiritual bond. Instead, I found Klingons. Nothing against Klingons, of course. But in that time, my private practice was flourishing. That pinpoint powerful thing that Alan talks about. An intimate, deep connection with the gods that have made themselves known to you personally. Working only with your guardians, not the guardians of the circle when you're in coven, but your own personal guardians. Working your own magics, really exploring and getting to know where your power lies, where you can effect change. We all aren't good at everything. And we are carried away in the energy of circle, on the energy that is raised by brothers and sisters, and things get accomplished, and within that we don't always know what our contribution to it was and what our own skill is. Oh, the glory of practicing alone. So life goes on, and I do meet another circle that I became an intimate member of and then led for many years, and I discovered that I would not give up my solo practice. I wouldn't give up one iota of it. I will never give up practicing dark or full moon on my own, or doing the 8 holidays on my own. It might be the same night I celebrate with my current coven. It might be a day before or after, according to how it feels it needs to be any given turning. I do want to honor the power of the group. I'm a junkie for the group energy. I'm a junkie for being in a group. Admittedly, I'm a junkie for leading a group when that opportunity arises. Now, I'm an elder in my current group, so my urge to lead is a little bit tempered at the moment, but I can mentor and guide. And I can help form and focus energy, and I can be present in lots of ways. that make use of the knowledge I've gathered over the years, and I've also, in the process of this experience now, with my current coven, been able to reconnect to, this is what's great, the cycle of, I'm now sitting at the feet of my priest and priestess. I am not the priestess in that circle. I'm sitting at the feet of my beloved priestess, and she is conducting and she is holding the energy and he is there for us. But how I am in that circle now, with the experience of my power as a solitary, as who I know I am in the universe as an individual, makes me be so much more present and part of that circle as one amongst the Coveners. Something that wasn't there in those early days in that traditional way I came up in. Now, Alan mentioned, of course, we've got challenges with dealing with groups. And none of those dynamics are ever going to be perfect. I remember my former priestess saying, whenever 2 or more of you gather in the name of the goddess, there will be problems. It's the way it is. It's what happens when the humans come together. The power of it is when it's more important to everyone in the group that the group be healthy and that the group be whole than their individual agendas. That's when the beauty of these circles makes itself known. Humans at their best. At their absolute best. The power of solitary practice to me is huge, and it's why I was led to ask Alan what happens then when he comes back to spend time with a group now that he has developed such an awesome personal practice. This is an interesting topic to me, and those of you who are watching who see it as a video response to Alan or on my channel, I'd like to know where your maturation has brought you, if you have had experience both in circles and practicing solo. What are your thoughts on the two experiences? How do you blend them together, comfortably or not? Did becoming powerfully solo lead you to want to remain powerfully solo? What do you do then when you take that energy back into a group, attending or leading? Do they feel like two separate worlds? How do you blend them together? Or do they each have their individual and separate perfect place in your life? I'm finding that an interesting topic recently, and I've been asking the same question that I asked Alan to a lot of others that I am meeting who have experience in group and solo practice. Thank you, Alan, for having taken the time for such an amazing video that answered my question. And now you know that it's been a pet question of mine for about 6 months or so now, as I'm meeting more and more YouTubers who have experience both as a solo and working in groups. I wish you all mirth and reverence. Merry part.